Hi, this is Bob Samuels, founder of TechConnectr. TechConnectr provides efficiencies and actionable intelligence for B2B lead gen marketers and their agents. We've partnered with SiriusDecisions to bring you wisdom from leading account-based marketing thought leaders. To that end, I'm happy to introduce you to James Foulkes, co-founder and director of Kingpin Communications. Like me, James has a background in print publications before he dove deep into digital marketing and the related intelligence and targeting. Kingpin is a pioneer in ABM marketing, and they'll be exhibiting at next week's SiriusDecisions Summit in London. James, it's a pleasure to speak with you. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And that's my British understatement. So it's actually Friday afternoon in London, and I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Excellent. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in London and the SiriusDecisions show. It's my favorite show of all. They just do a really good job.
Yeah, they certainly do. And actually, I often seen that the marketing and sales side of the tech industry can often be not brushed aside, but be the bit in the corner that no one wants to talk about after the more mainstream IT analysts. So it's great to have someone that focuses on us, and it will be good to catch up.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like about Sirius is they've got great presentations, but it's also a great way to network and see people who are really good at what they do and compare notes and so forth. So it's always exciting for me.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's good. The content's good. You get to meet competitors and partners alike, and you also get to meet clients, prospects, and it's a great way to just garner knowledge and almost brainstorm for a couple of days. To be honest, certainly, I always pick up a couple of nuggets, things that I didn't think about before, which I guess is what happens when you stick 1,500 creative types in a room and start talking about how they're going to market.
Oh my, it's wonderful. So I understand you guys are going to have a booth there. Is there anything new going on in the Kingpin world that we should look forward to hearing or seeing about when we get there?
Well, we always tell our clients not to talk about products, but I guess the most significant thing we've got is actually the 2.0 version of Argus, which is our account intelligence, our data validation and campaign management platform. So we'll be demoing that on our booth, and it'll be really cool to get people's thoughts on it. We've put a lot of thoughts into it. We've integrated with lots of third-party data and first-party data to really kind of build an overall 360 view of accounts and organizations and the kind of topics that they're looking at. So it'd be good to get people along to have a look at that, just get their opinion. It's like everything, it's a journey. It's agile development. It's always in beta, however you want to describe it. We're always continuously improving it. So opinions are as valid as anything else.
Excellent. So before we go too far, so if you can explain a little bit to our audience as far as your background, Kingpin's background, and you've been around a while, and then your tie into ABM, and ABM is, it's really just named accounts or target accounts, but the topic and the processes there. What's your background?
Okay, so myself, I come from a fairly long media and event management background, or at least that's where I started, something like 30 years ago. So something around
when you were 12.
Yeah, well, if only. When I was around about 17, I actually started in the tech media space, and that kind of grew to managing events, small bespoke events, through to larger conferences, mainly for tech vendors. At that time, myself and my co-founder Mirza decided that we would look at working closer with these tech companies to actually work out best routes to market. So we launched Kingpin in 1997. We've always had something that we call audience first. So we understood where the audience was, what it was doing, where it was going, and how to reach it at the right time. So traditionally we come from a media and data background. But that's been really good for us because the explosion in data and the excitement around technology has been really good for us because we started at the beginning always looking at audience, always looking at market sizing, segmentation. We were doing personas early 2000s. We come from a kind of sales background where we were targeted to around about 150 to 200 accounts. So we got the kind of account-based modeling and marketing from day one. And in many ways, actually, it's not changed. The results are still the same. You still want to engage organizations. You still want to get them doing stuff. But the only channels we had when we first did this was a telephone, a fax machine, and sending out letters. Whereas now in a multi-channel world, that's completely changed. More to the point, I can now track what individuals and organizations are doing too. So I guess in a nutshell, been around a while, always been in data, reluctant geeks, and see ABM as a natural extension to the account-based selling that we did when we first started in this industry.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you put a premium on intelligence and data and just being really smart and targeted about it. So it's just it's a great match for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, account-based marketing for us, and the move to account-based marketing has been fantastic for Kingpin because we traditionally like to look at a longer game and embedding ourselves with clients and their prospects so we can fully understand the end-to-end customer journey and how people buy their products and services. And the move to account-based marketing has moved from very tactical driven short-term KPIs. What leads can I get in? Can I get MQLs? Can I get SQLs, etc.? To, okay, how do I influence this account over a 6, 12, 24-month period in some cases, and that's fantastic for us because it means we can actually deep dive into our clients, their prospects and customers, and start working out a longer term route for them. Rather than short-term gain of, can I get a load of leads in? Can sales follow it up? Can they sell stuff? Which feels a bit like marketing producing stuff, throwing it over the wall to sales and sales trying to follow up on it. As opposed to what we generally find we're working with now is someone sat in between marketing and sales and actually seeing ABM as a strategy, not a tactic.
Very good. I agree. So as far as the strategy, I understand a lot of the process has to do with a lot of the planning up ahead and coordination with sales. Who generally leads the processes that you've seen, sales or marketing, or where do the challenges or the successes happen?
Okay, there's always going to be challenges within sales and marketing, even though we all want the same thing. Where the responsibility lies, do you want me to tell you where it actually lies, or where I think it should lie? Where it actually lies can change from company to company. Where I think it should lie is somebody should get the overall accountability for and you can call it account-based sales, you can call it account-based marketing. It doesn't really matter. But what you're trying to do is extract greater engagement and revenue from a certain number of accounts over time. So that should sit with somebody. They can come from a sales commercial background, they can come from a marketing background, they can come from a product marketing background. It doesn't really matter, but somebody should be accountable for that. And then behind that, there should be a team. And those teams should have one goal, or should I say two goals: increase engagement and increase revenue from a targeted number of accounts. That's it. So accountability should sit with one person in one team.
Yes. And so when I hear account-based marketing, I think of bringing in new accounts, net new names. But the reality is a lot of it has to do with growing the existing clients. So it's a bit of both.
It is, and this is where I actually quite like HubSpot's version of the funnel, i.e. the flywheel, because don't be an insurance company if you're thinking about account-based marketing. If I think of the insurance companies I engage with as a consumer, I get a letter at the end of the year saying we're about to renew you, and they renew me. And then my friend 2 doors down gets a letter from the same insurance company saying, we want to take you away from your current insurance supplier, so I'm going to give you a 20% discount. that makes me feel bad as a customer. What they should be doing is treating me as an account and starting to sell to me on a number of levels. So if they've got my house insurance, why don't they get my car insurance? If they've got my house and car insurance, why don't they get my utility and all of my essential services booked in? And that's kind of where we have to think now. So I know Serious Decisions do some fantastic frameworks, but in terms of the demand waterfall, I prefer to look at a flywheel, because you are always continuously trying to influence at the right time and continuously trying to sell to people, whether they're a customer or a prospect. You're either trying to maintain revenue or grow revenue if they're a customer, or actually get them in if they're a prospect. So from my perspective, I like the flywheel approach, although I do see value in the funnel.
Interesting. So not just go after them for each product by product, but the whole holistic relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things we'll probably cover is where I see this going, or where this is going to go over the next 1 and 5 years. And I think personalization and the move towards people assuming that they're going to interact with organizations in the same way they do B2C. I almost think in 5 years' time there won't be a B2C, B2B split. It will be person to person assumed over a digital platform. So yeah, you're going to get senior IT, senior board level people wanting to talk to humans, but the actual users of the software are definitely going to, or service are definitely going to want a kind of personalized view and personalized. I know in today's world it's an app. God knows what it's going to be in 5 years' time. But they're going to want a person-to-person experience, and that's going to drive a whole load of ABM. And that's the interesting thing about ABM. It's not just marketing; it's customer experience as well. It's what you do once they become a customer. It's how you get them in. It's the impression you make from the second the CEO walks in your front door to the time that one of the people running the research land on your website. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you mentioned personalization, and with the information and the data, signals and so forth we have, we can get to the point where we've got very, very specific people we can go after, specific timing and discussions we can have, which is great. The downside of it is it can be a little bit spooky.
Yeah.
And besides the fact that, and maybe you can share a little bit about how GDPR gets involved as far as how personalized do we want to get?
Okay, so GDPR protects data subjects, and it's about understanding protecting their personal information. So it depends. Again, I quite like the way Serious Decisions do one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, or one-to-programmatic as a kind of split of the way that you approach ABM in that one-to-one route. If we talk about personalization, you can be hyper personalized because traditionally you've got a fairly large budget to target a fairly large account. So on that level, you can actually garner and take a whole load of information that's in the public domain and put it together. There are tools like Crystal Knows, for example, that you can utilize if you know you have to speak to somebody but you don't know how to. In the one-to-few market, you're probably able to do something similar. In the one-to-many, that's where personalization gets harder and also a bit murkier if you're starting to scrape people's personal information from here and there. But actually, GDPR doesn't stop you emailing or targeting people under the guise of legitimate interest. You just have to make sure you understand why you're doing that, the impact on that data subject, if any of the information you hold got out there, and how much of it's available in the public domain. So you do need to think about it, but actually GDPR just gets you to do good marketing rather than bad marketing.
Good. So it's our friend. And it gets rid of some of the bad players, and it lets you still be able to market to people. As like you said, there's a legitimate intent. That's helpful.
Yeah, it does.
So
I mean,
yeah.
Go on.
Please.
The only thing I would add to that is actually I've never met a marketer that actually wanted to target someone who didn't have a legitimate reason for being targeted. I know. We used to at scale spam lots of people with lots of cold email, and I'm never suggesting doing that. But at least there's a reason for emailing them in the first place. You have to work that out. You're not going to send a message to someone that's completely going to ruin your brand. And that's funnily enough, above and beyond GDPR. So GDPR is just a baseline of protecting data subjects. It's actually more about customer experience and brand value when you think of targeting someone cold. Is this email going to affect my brand negatively? Is the kind of questions that you should be asking now, rather than the data protection issues. It's more a commercial view.
Makes sense. Thank you. So you've mentioned a few technologies. You love HubSpot. Crystal Knows I'm not familiar with. What other technologies have you found to be useful? Is there any technology, for instance, to help you with the messaging? Knowing who to reach out to, I get that, and maybe what their, figuring out maybe what their interest is or what their pain points are is kind of a key. But how do you figure out what to talk about? And there's no magic formula. There's no software you can buy that'll help you figure out what to message. You have to do that yourself.
So the first thing is there's so much MarTech around. I've yet to find the silver bullet. Some of it depends on what you're trying to achieve, and ABM for one organization is different from ABM to another. In terms of actual dynamic content, there are tools around that pertain to understand behavior and present text in a way that it suits the content that person is consuming. As yet, I've not seen that work so successfully, other than at something like an IP or organization level. You can personalize to the individual if you know them through your automation tool, or you can personalize to the industry or to the company based on you've picked them up through IP tracking or however you're doing that. In terms of actual dynamic content, I've not seen anything beyond that works brilliantly. There's no silver bullet, but that doesn't mean you can't track. And we like to think of marketing qualified accounts is kind of where we head. So there's no reason why you can't attract and look at an account and the kind of content it's consuming off you and third-party websites, and start thinking, well, if they're looking at endpoint security, maybe I should send them an endpoint security message. And actually, these are the decision makers that have heavily engaged with us, but we know we're missing these 4 or 5 over here. Maybe we should start sending them some branding to kind of help cross-fertilize across the whole buying team. So you can look at content and behavior, and you can start adapting. But once you get into the one-to-programmatic, one-to-many, that's really hard to do at scale. It's only there if the deal value or the customer lifetime value to you is into seven figures.
Interesting. So, and you mentioned that you take a look at, when you look at an account, you're looking at who you know there, and you're also figuring out who you don't know there. So I imagine you're hooking into some databases of contacts to match up what you have versus the whole world out there to figure out the white space.
Yeah, you've got the general suspects. So you've got LinkedIn, ZoomInfo, etc. But you've also got some specific technology lists. So over here, certainly in Europe, we've got MI Europe, which is a data set we can use. We can also call into a department level and start researching these. Again, it depends on how much information you need to know, and also how much information you really can know. And then thirdly, how much is of value to you, because some of these organizations are so large that can you really do a personal message to 20,000 marketing individuals within a very large organization? Probably not. So you might want to look at 6 to 12 contacts that you can influence, that you know are heavily influential, and spend a lot of time and effort on those, and almost treat the rest of the organization as a one-to-programmatic buy, where you start targeting them and then tracking behavior once they're responding.
Makes sense. So how do you figure out what channels to use as far as outreach? Do you typically try to hit people multi-channel with calling and emailing and web and social and so forth?
So at the one-to-one kind of space within ABM, that's relatively easy because you can spend time and effort on working out what makes the individual tick. I mentioned Crystal Knows again. That is a tool that effectively looks through all of your social searches, postings, etc., and comes up with a personality type for that individual, and it's unerringly accurate. I actually suggest that you go after this podcast, go onto it and put yourself in there and find out your own profile, which is based on stuff it can get completely legally across the web. So have a look at that. It is unnerving. It really is. It's very accurate. So you could do that kind of stuff, but and that means you can then start focusing on more personal touches. So as I said, if you can get those 6 to 12 individuals, ideally 6 that you want to talk to, you can start inviting them to the events that they want to go to. That might be where you'll include hospitality. It might be that you'll send a high value direct mail through. It's a very different channel route than if you look at the one to programmatic route, which is more kind of just good targeted marketing, where you may be targeting an industry. And those channels, you're going to use the at-scale channels. So you're going to use digital ads, you're going to use the programmatic real-time advertising, and you're going to use things like email, social, paid social, etc. So it depends on how important the client is and how you're approaching it as to exactly which channels you'll use.
Makes sense. And then, like you said, at the different levels of ABM, the one-to-one, the one-to-many, the one-to-few, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So different outreaches.
Exactly that.
And then I think you've alluded to signals. So I think Crystal Knows gives you some clues about what people are interested in, where they frequent, maybe. What other intelligence tools are you using? Bombora or Big Willow or any other intelligence sort of or signals sort of offerings?
Yeah, we do. We're big believers in intent data. We've used that ourselves actually to complete lead generation campaigns, and we've seen a massive uplift just by using intent data over standardized flat data or behavioral or standardized firmographic information. So yeah, we do use all of those that you've suggested and a few more. We also have our own intent data. Most of the campaigns we send out for our customers, we are tracking at least at the organizational level what people are doing and what organizations are doing. So we could see content consumed and maybe look at if there's a project available. So we could start using that intel and then maybe calling into that account and on behalf of our clients, start finding out what they're interested in and what's making them tick. But yeah, we're big believers in intent data. Mainly because if you look at any organization, it clearly has its own buying cycles and its own content. It has its own times of the year that actually takes content. So if we looked at a large organization, you'll see there's 2 or 3 times of the year it's actively taking content. So if you're looking at that as an account, you'll probably target it with gated downloadable content at the times it will take it, and throughout the rest of the year have an always-on programmatic campaign just to back that up, so you're always front of mind. And the reason I say we do that is, for example, we ran a IT leader event last night and asked a simple question: Is brand important when selecting? When selecting vendors, and 50% of them said yes straight away. The rest kind of had it to varying degrees, but certainly branding. And that's how I would see that as well. If you're taking it at an account level and you're targeting it throughout the year and putting your money into gated campaigns around the times it's taking content, that gives you the greatest chance to succeed over the year.
That makes sense. So it sounds like you're using the intelligence to figure out who to talk to, what to talk to them about, and perhaps when to talk to them. Sounds like.
Yeah, exactly that.
Beautiful. And have you had any experience with some of the predictive solutions, like a 6 Sense or Mintigo or EverString and that sort of thing?
Sorry, say that again. The line went dead.
Some of the predictive solutions out there, like
Yep.
6 Sense or Mintigo, EverString, Lattice engines. Have you had any success or use of those solutions?
Yeah, we're often driven by, in the same way we'll work with Marketo, Eloqua, or a whole host of tech. We're often driven by tech that our clients have already installed and invested in. For example, if we sit down with somebody who's invested in 6 Sense, we're not going to tell them to rip it out and remove it. So we'll work with it. All of them perform a reasonable job. So what we try to do is just use it as another data set to add to anything that we can implement and complement.
Yep. Okay, makes sense. So do you have any examples that you can share as far as some of the success stories you've had, either for yourself, but perhaps you use ABM for your own marketing to get new clients or build your clients, or success you've had with some of your clients, or maybe some learning opportunities that's good as well.
Yeah. So I think one of the key questions I would ask someone at the beginning of an ABM campaign is, what defines success? So certainly for ourselves, we have around about, so we're in the what kind of one just ahead of one to few, somewhere between one to few and one to many. We've got 105 companies that we want to target. So we've specifically mapped those out, filled out a white space analysis. Hopefully some of them are listening to this podcast as well, and actually have seen some of our marketing and promotion going towards them. But that's enabled us to manage our inbound, and we've heftily affected all of our opportunities in terms of marketing we've sent out there. What I don't have at this moment in time is an exact figure on that, because our marketing manager is currently in the phase of planning. But we'd affected at least 60% of our pipeline last time we checked, and our year end was end of June. So we analysed the previous year in August.
Okay. So I'm curious what defines your target accounts. So you've got 100 or so target accounts. Do you define those? Is that an industry or a company size or geography, or are you limited to clients that don't compete with some of your other clients? What are some of the processes involved with identifying who the key targets are? Or
so,
if this is not something you can share, then let me know that too.
No. We're careful not to pick up too many accounts that compete. If we do, we make them aware and sit them in separate account teams. We generally target mid to large IT accounts, and in terms of where they're based geographically, well, I mean, our offices are based in London and on the West Coast. So in terms of, if you take that kind of tech target, mid-sized to large organisation, they're going to be based in and around London, in Europe somewhere, or in and around the West Coast or across America, primarily.
Makes sense. And then, just out of curiosity, what defines success for you when you're going through the process?
For us internally, so I'll give you an idea of. So we ran, funnily enough, an event, a webinar 2 weeks ago on ABM, and we were currently going through a pitch process with a potential new account. We had 13 people from that account on that webinar. For us, that's success, certainly from a marketing standpoint.
Beautiful. So this is really good. So anything else I've missed? Any other words of wisdom that's top of mind you'd like to share?
Not really, but I'd kind of summarize ABM. Just make sure it's a strategy, not a tactic. You're in it for the long term, and you make someone accountable for it who straddles across marketing and sales. And more than just one person. Ideally, you'd have an account-based team, and that's it. Then test, and try. Understand the market you're selling to and you're targeting, and that's it. Start from there really, and just track what you're doing over time, and react accordingly. It really isn't, to use the old phrase, rocket science, but as long as it's planned out well and executed well, you will reap results.
Beautiful. I think it's great. I appreciate your time and the wisdom you've shared. It's awesome. I look forward to continuing our conversation when I see you in London.
Okay, see you in a couple of weeks, Bob.
Thank you, James. Take care.
Have a great weekend.